Canada has recently expelled Tesla from all initiatives and benefits regarding electric cars. They have effectively banned Tesla from operating in the country. I'm going to show you several notes because this is not an exaggeration. This is not clickbait. This is a blow to Trump and Elon Musk. This is a blow to Trump and to Elon Musk. But the subsidies are over. There is nothing. Zero. Not only that, there is an investigation against Elon Musk and Tesla because there is already talk, according to information from the New York Times, of a chanchulazo, as we say in Mexico, of theft or fraud against the Canadian government by Tesla, or at least it is suspected that there is something strange going on here. Now I'm going to tell you about this, but all of this is happening because of course, the tariffs that Trump imposed against Canada. What they thought was going to be a power play, well, it blew up in their faces. Now it really is. That, as we say in Mexico, it literally blew up in their face. This is no longer a commercial fight. It is a revenge. Literally. It is a political revenge, and it is escalating much faster than anyone expected it would happen. It was going to happen. Look, the bombshell fell precisely with the announcement that we saw a few days ago from the Canadian government. Canadian government, where they already warned that Tesla is officially out of all federal programs, permanently out of the federal programs, specifically out of one that was there. The motive behind this design was to provide perks for electric vehicles, which is a commonplace practice adopted by nearly all countries. If you purchase an electric vehicle, you receive a tax incentive. So that means that all Tesla buyers in Canada, at this very moment, you are involuntarily declining in your skill level. Is this a punishment against the brand? Of course it is. And if you look at the provinces that are also betting on it, because it's not just Ontario, we're talking about, look at British Columbia, we're talking about Manitoba, we're talking about Nova Scotia. We are talking about British Columbia, we are talking about Manitoba, we are talking about Nova Scotia, we are talking, of course, about Ontario, specifically here in the city of Toronto. We're talking about a financial penalty here alone of over $70 million for the remainder of this year alone, plus whatever accumulates. That's not all, but the real hit is not in this $70 million. I know that for Elon Musk, that's change for a bill. It's change he's leaving behind. But this is just the beginning. The unfortunate context significantly affecting Elon Musk's sales and leading to the collapse of the brand in Canada has resulted in formal expulsion. It is perplexing why anyone would consider purchasing a Tesla when they are practically prohibited. That's the real context of this move, and that's what's really hurting him a lot in Washington and in Austin, where they're manufactured, because Tesla being excluded from the Canadian market is not the only issue at hand. And that in some ways is the most troubling thing for Elon Musk. They are using Tesla as a global warning to say these are the consequences of your actions, and you know what, folks? The guy more than deserves it. Because this veto, in some ways, it's not just against Tesla. It's something very significant because this car brand was like the spoiled child of green subsidies. One wonders, and now it's all coming out in the open. But why were they giving subsidies to the brand of a billionaire? Friends, this was part of a globalist agenda. Globalist agenda? How can you not be a billionaire if practically every government subsidizes your car? Well, that's how anyone gets rich. Tesla was the darling of green subsidies. Just look at Canada alone sold over 46,000 Tesla cars in 2024. Sounds like a lot, but now let me tell you from the other side that we were not told. Each one of those cars represented thousands of dollars in rebates that the government had to pay out of my taxes. Why am I going to pay money to Tesla? To Tesla? We're talking about over 230 million Canadian dollars. To inject an idea that had a direct impact on Elon Musk's sales and the stock market, which should give you a sense of its significance. But now the same Canadian government that gave him that advantage is saying to him, well, is telling him that this is as far as you've come. Not only that, see this note? Because he is being investigated for fraud. What an angel. Canada is investigating Elon Musk for defrauding his company Tesla and froze $43 million for having inflated its sales in the last 3 days of this program. That's why you see this note, and it is titled, 4 Tesla dealerships in Canada stated that they successfully sold a total of 8,653 vehicles within a span of merely 3 days. That's not possible. Look at the breakdown of the story. It smells bad. Smells bad. The Canadian government is keen on understanding the strategy employed by the electric car manufacturer in selling a car every 30 seconds consistently without closing the dealerships. It is baffled at how they managed to achieve such sales numbers with 2 cars being sold every minute from the 10th to the 12th of January. And thanks to this scam, they reclaimed tens of millions of dollars in taxes from us. Taxes from us that went to Elon Musk's pocket. Into Elon Musk's pocket. Is a fraud. It is not officially confirmed, but it is evident that even the New York Times is curious about the method you employed for it, because it's a figure that is totally absurd. 8,600 cars sold in 3 days. That the investigation is already underway. The payments, by the way, have already been frozen until further notice, but he has already been completely expelled from here in Canada from these types of subsidies. Friends, 1 sale every 30 seconds per room. Come on. Not even in Walmart's Black Friday do they sell that many TVs or bread or whatever you want. You can never see those numbers. And while this scam is being investigated, by the way, the new and brand new Transport Minister, Chrystia Freeland, who before was one of the culprits, by the way, one of the culprits for the financial mess we are currently facing in Canada, is believed to be implicated nonetheless. Mark Carney recycles all these brand new officials, and all we need is to soon see Trudeau as Minister of Education, Education Minister. But well, Freeland has already announced that Tesla is not going to be eligible for these incentives that are totally out of the program because they are considered illegitimate and go against Canada. And that they go against Canada, that is to say, what we are witnessing here is that if Trump does not back down, because all of this stems, of course, from an issue regarding tariffs, if he does not back down, Trump will continue to cause us financial losses amounting to billions of dollars. Freeland does not improvise. That Freeland is not improvising. In fact, she is not speaking for herself a few weeks ago. The Liberals and Conservatives are campaigning here right now because remember that on April 28th, April 28th is the election. So, or your new parliament, and with that, a new prime minister in Canada. No? The Liberals are proposing tariffs of 100% against Tesla in retaliation. That is, they are not only not going to subsidize cars to Elon Musk, they are not going to subsidize cars to Elon Musk, but anyone who buys a Tesla is going to have to pay 100% in tariffs. Tariffs, in taxes, in punishment. Who do you think is going to be crazy enough to buy an electric car after this? An electric car after this? Nobody. Absolutely nobody in Canada. And now, well, that has an immediate effect because the companies are already beginning to understand that if they align with Trump, that if they align themselves with Trump, there's a real cost, and that real cost is going to be paid by them. Poor everyone who has Tesla dealerships here in Canada. I feel sorry for all of you Tesla owners here in Canada. By the way, this weekend I will share my experience. We had a power outage that lasted for a considerable amount of time. It has been 3 days and counting for many, and for us, it was 2 days. You should have seen 3 neighbors who have Teslas on the street out there with their gasoline generators. With their gasoline-powered generators charging the Tesla. Surreal. Well, this is all Trump's fault. Trump was the one who cast the first stone. March 6th, which is one of the most spectacular days in the world, is my birthday. But on the 6th of March, something bad, really bad happens. Trump comes out with this announcement of tariffs of 25% on almost all products coming from Canada and Mexico. It's on almost all the products coming from Canada and Mexico. What happens? When he throws the first stone, Canada and Mexico obviously join forces and launch this 25% counterattack, specifically against all imported cars, specifically against all the imported cars without exceptions that Donald Trump puts. And then there is a response from the Mexican and Canadian side. And the US press is trying to wash Donald Trump's face. They want to soften the blow, and they say, They said that this is not something that is going to weaken the United States. They went out to say that, on the contrary, that this was going to strengthen the local industry. What he did went against everything. There you go. That's the whole story. Really, what it did was to shoot itself in the foot, and today the sales of the brand new Tesla are finishing pulverizing. Just look at the 2023 year period. Canada exported more than 1.4 million vehicles to the United States. Now imagine each one of those 1.4 million vehicles with a tariff with a 25% of 25%. If we do the math, well, that is an additional $13 billion. And who is going to have to pay? Not the Canadians, not the Mexicans either. Then they are going to be paid by the Americans. They are the ones who are going to have to put that money. And the worst thing is that this does not only affect Canada. Mexico is also in Donald Trump's sights. But the one who ends up paying for the broken plate is the average American. This smells like blackmail. Of course, a blackmail disguised as economic policy. And the problem is that Trump did not stop there, because together with Elon Musk, have dedicated themselves to releasing these kinds of incendiary statements about annexing Canada as another territory of the United States. What is the pretext? Allegedly, they claim that Canada relies overly on the United States, signifying a significant dependency. But the background is different. The truth is that Canada is moving away from the axis of Washington Wall Street. That is the reality, and that hurts Donald Trump a lot. The country is somehow already waking up. Canadians have already opened their eyes. They have already really realized things. And they are starting to weave an alliance with Europe and with Asia. And of course, saying to see, the United States is no longer our friend. It's not our partner, and we don't even think alike. It's a threat. One, it's an existential threat, because basically what Donald Trump wants is for us not to exist as a country. How are we going to mess with a guy who threatens us like that? We go to Europe, to Asia, we make these alliances that are already creating trade corridors for lithium, cobalt, rare earths. Why do you think Donald Trump is in such a hurry to close this rare earths agreement? With Ukraine? Because Europe is putting Asia and Canada in an inescapable position, while Trump's opportunities are diminishing rapidly. Because they are going to run out of rare earths. Fortunately, Canada has already understood that it can no longer trust a partner that threatens us with tariffs and with invading us. Europe has also woken up. Of course, they already knew that the issue is that they had never previously interacted with the cake, whereas they had previously interacted with us while we were in Mexico. But sorry to say it, but it is that this is repeated from time to time, because the poetry tells itself, it is not the same to see it coming than to feel it coming. Now that we are seeing this threat pointing to Canada and Europe, then they already say, but this is not my friend. This is no longer my ally either. And then neither is Tesla. Tesla, which needs those rare earth minerals for its batteries, by the way, and it's not gonna, for its batteries, and it will no longer have access to them. So it is not only the issue of the sanctions that Canada is imposing, as you can see in this note, which is expelling them from any agreement that benefits them. It is also the issue that they are closing the door for Tesla to access them. Is closing the door to Tesla so that they cannot obtain any minerals for their batteries. And that is a gigantic checkmate. By the way, there is a factory that Tesla built in Ontario. That was precisely part of Elon Musk's plan to make sure that they could. Are they aiming to utilize Canadian lithium for their automobiles as well? I wonder if Elon Musk intends to establish a large factory in Mexico as well in order to exploit this resource. Well, it wasn't for love of Mexico. It was to plunder Mexican lithium. That's the reality. But now all of this is falling apart for him. Since he has openly allied himself with Donald Trump, well, he should forget about Mexican lithium. To say goodbye to Canadian lithium, because that's not going to happen. Because he spends his time attacking our governments, attacking journalists, destabilizing democratic processes, intervening in Mexico's elections, of course. Look, if you do not remember that famous narco-government tweet, where did it come from? From X? From Twitter? Who was responsible for destabilizing the Mexican elections? Elon Musk was involved in that situation. Why? Because he is interested in Mexican lithium. That's why, because he does the same in Canada or in Europe. Now, which is also being accused of wanting to intervene in European politics in order to plunder its resources. And now all these countries are joining together, Mexico with Europe, with Canada, closing the door to Tesla and saying, don't count on my lithium and don't count on my purchases either. And you can't count on my purchases either. Europe, as we have already said, closed the door. Tesla's sales have experienced a significant decline globally. In Germany alone, they have plummeted by over 43% this year. The situation is even more drastic in China, where sales dropped by a staggering 94%. In other words, Tesla's sales have fallen by 50% in China. Donald Trump wanted to give Tesla artificial respiration for that reason a few days ago, announcing or bringing forward the tariffs on the cars because he knows that these tariffs will increase the prices of Ford and Chevrolet. Consequently, people will seek to purchase items that are less expensive, despite the fact that everything else will become more costly. Now that everything is going up in price, it costs almost the same as buying a Tesla. Let's see if this way he rescues his buddy Elon Musk from this terrible rut he is in, where we could practically say that they are already more bankrupt at Tesla than you would think they could. Thought that they could resurgence, especially with this talk of green energy from a Trump ally, who is one of the guys that cares the least, who cares the least about the environment and who bets the most on the exploitation of fossil energies. So the curtain has already fallen in a way. Expose the facade of hypocrisy that covered Elon Musk with hypocrisy. Canada hits hard, but now it does it unlike before, together with Europe, along with Mexico, and also, of course, along with Asia. With this sort of corridor that they are already, I want to emphasize the significance of everything that originates from it. By the way, my dear friends, there's something very important and astonishing that I recall, and I must share it with you without delay. Because 3 neighbors on the street have Tesla. Over the weekend, our power went out because of a terrible ice storm we had. And there you have everybody with their Tesla and putting a generator on it and pumping gas into it to see if it would charge the beggar Tesla. It's a surreal thing. Let me show you. This is what we live here. In the little town where I live, for those of you who ask about what happened this weekend, that we couldn't go on the air with you, I don't know how to describe it to you without sounding exaggerated. So I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. You can see it here. These are images of the town and the surrounding area. This happened here. It really looked like we had gone back 20 years all of a sudden. Everything was totally blacked out. Numerous streets remain blocked and closed, blanketed in total silence. This eerie scene is caused by frozen trees immobilizing the surroundings. There you can witness the incredible weight a tree can support when burdened with ice. The trees cracked so intensely that they actually broke. The trees literally cracked and attracted the light poles. The problem is that when they brought the light poles, they made sparks and shorts and things started to catch fire. No, it was extremely dangerous. Terrible. In the 8 years we have been here, we had never seen anything apocalyptic like this. I know there have been worse things, but this was horrible. Just look at that. The power went out for 3 days in many areas. Today in the morning, a person who is doing some things here at home where he lives came by. They don't have electricity yet. It's been 3 days. His house is 6 degrees inside. Today he is going to see how he can get a generator because the electricity is getting scarce. Obviously, there is no internet, there is no heating, there is no signal. There is no signal. We are literally cut off. Not only here, in a good part of Ontario, in fact, more than 430,000 houses that were left. Let me present you with a note from the context. It serves as proof that I am not spreading rumors or hearsay. You can read it to verify the truth. There you have it, more than 430,000 homes that were left without electricity. Well, without electricity, we are talking about 500,000 people. Imagine that we were in total darkness. All weekend, many are still without anything because the ice covered everything. It was not a light frost, really. It was a very, very thick layer of ice that covered trees, cables, cars. We could hear branches falling all night long here in the corner of our house. You could also hear when the generator burned and exploded completely. They tried to fix that. Those that you see, there are hydro workers. That would be like Hydro is the name of the company that is like the Federal Electricity Commission here. They barely fixed it and it blew up again. They barely fixed it and another transformer blew up again. So yes, it was, without exaggeration, it was one of the worst ice storms. Worst ice storms we have seen in the last decades. Even the authorities themselves said that if you risked going out, you would run the risk of, being stranded, the danger of being stranded without anyone being able to rescue you. In Muskoka, for example, and in Orillia, which are in the area, there is a state of emergency. There are cities that have literally open shelters so that people can warm up, even here in the community. Even here in the community center, there were heaters. They said, you know that if your house gets very low, they said that if your temperature drops too low, spend the night here because you are going to freeze at night. During the night, numerous comments challenged the veracity of my post. Consider the fact that Ontario is a massive area where I currently reside. Good thing someone who lives here didn't run out of power, but it was ugly here, and this is a lot of forest area. Not everybody has a fireplace or generators. We don't have them. We are going to have them after this, but there were houses like the ones I am telling you, with 6 degrees centigrade, 2 degrees inside the house, small children, elderly people, for example, who depend on oxygen, who lose electricity, and how do they do it? That is why there you see the Hydro One crews, which is this Federal Electricity Commission, working like crazy, exposing themselves, because imagine how dangerous it is to work with this kind of electricity. How dangerous it is to work with these temperatures. Yet the electricity has been restored for about 358,000 people, but there are still almost half of them. Almost another half, almost 400,000 people who still do not have electricity. So things were really apocalyptic images that we lived through. And in the midst of all this, it's a bad time to have a Tesla in Canada for many reasons. And this is one of them. This is one of those. Thank you to all of you who are comments here, says the Coda de los Tesoros. Wow, yes, it was ugly, very cold, says Vicky Amador. The Spanish network has the capacity to nullify its attempts of espionage and interference by Starlink or other systems. That's why I think that all countries should cut connections with Starlink as soon as possible, because that is, please handle this matter urgently as there might be intelligence operations involved. Juan Ramon Diaz says, from Spain, we saw the images of Ontario spectacular. Yes, it was ugly. Explosion, crunching, greetings to Bella Guerrero. Yes, they are experiencing episodes of flooding and extreme weather changes. Indeed, now we are also faced with the challenge of dealing with floods. Tesla can't even revive with an IV, says Martin Vasquez. Yes. They are already on. Lourdes Rodriguez, thank you for being here. Our friend Mr. Palomino says gasoline giving life to a Tesla. Yes, literally. Yes, it was really hilarious because that pretty much sums it up. There's nothing environmentally friendly about it. Every Tesla is powered by the house socket that connects to a nuclear power plant. So even though it's an electric car, it's not actually charged by the sun, but by the nuclear power plant via the house socket. The plug of the house that comes from nuclear energy, that is not renewable energy at all, that is garbage that is going to stay in all those batteries once they are no longer useful, which is the real business of the cars, to sell batteries. Because those are the first to break down. In cell phones, the big business is the programmed obsolescence of the batteries. Thanks to Christian for his super chat. He says, Trump against the world. I ask who will win, and Trump thinks he will win. Andrea Juarez says, greetings. I like your show. Thank you very much, friend Andrea Juarez. And thank you all very much for connecting, and see you in the next podcast.